Hello there, welcome to Real Love Guitars Worky Shop. I'm Sam, and this is my messy workbench with lots of things, different things going on today. I'm going to make a custom scratch plate for somebody's guitar, but that's separate. What I'm just going to talk about is a quick video, quickish video on this. This is somebody's spare neck, or a rejected neck, sent to me as a kind of contribution to the old folks' home, or the old dog's home. This is a really good example of what you get when you. This is what you get when you send off to China for a neck. Now, a lot of people get very uppity about buying stuff from China, and the default start point is that everything from China is a pile of junk and blah blah. Well, it's not exactly the case. Not everything is junk, and even this, right? Now, what they crap at in the Chinese factories is they seem to be really lousy at getting the shapes. They try and make it like this was originally a strat shape. They try to make it strat shape, and they don't even get that close. So you know, if you're buying it for a client's project and you wanted it strat shaped, you'd be at a loss, because you couldn't give this to the client. They wouldn't be happy with it. On top of that, it comes in this kind of saffron yellow lacquer, which is pretty garish. Although actually it looks okay on some guitars. I did one like this, and it wasn't bad. But and so if you spend, I guess it's about 25 quid or something like that, it's hardly any money shipped from China for 25 quid. If you spend that money on this, you can't really expect much. And so if you get past the snobbery about it, what's actually wrong? Well, like I said, the colour and the shape are wrong. But beyond that, what have we got? Well, we've got a 16-inch radius neck with you know, a few blemishes here and there. Actually, the fretting is reasonably good. You've got a set of frets that are pretty flat and straight to begin with. A flat radius, so you won't have any problem with bends and low actions and so on. Buzzing away. Strat shaped neck. Actually, the wood underneath that is quite nice. There's nothing really that bad about it. It's starting to get a bit flamey on the side here. So overall, it's not a bad piece of wood. And what have you got inside it? Well, you've got a truss rod underneath a maple fingerboard with a maple rest of the body, and obviously no skunk stripe because it's got the fingerboard there. So it's a fingerboard on top of a piece of maple. So the question is this any good? Well, not if you wanted a strat shaped thing, but actually I can always use a T-shaped neck. So I've taken this cast off, which I've paid money for this in the past, and had one that was similarly badly shaped on the headstock, and they gave me about half of it. Now I think Robbie, who sent this to me, got a replacement which was as bad again, so he sent me this one as a sort of see what you can do with it. And what I can do with it is I can get rid of the terrible strat shape in a pretty good approximation of a Telecaster shape. Now, it's not absolutely perfect, it's certainly not perfect in dimensions, but I'm making it look and feel like a Telecaster. The only difference is it'll have a round thing. And then what I'm going to do for no money, all right, 25 quid, but for me no money, I'm going to pull all the frets out of this, throw them away, and then I'm going to sand this all back to wood, and I'm going to refret it with nice frets, quality frets, or quality sized frets, and then I'm going to, well, I'll put it another way, I'm going to re-lacquer it, put my decal on, and then refret it with maybe some jumbo frets or something like that. And then I'm going to use it in a tele project. And actually what I'll get out of that, for let's say I bought it for 25 quid. 25 quid plus some of my time and work, I will get myself a beautiful neck that will actually play and feel great. Because essentially there's nothing else wrong with this. It does what it's supposed to do. It will work as a neck. It's not going to fall apart or anything strange happen to it. So somebody might say, well, 25 quid, then you've put a load of work in, you might as well have built it. Well, no, think about building this neck, right? Think of what it really takes. You've got to have a neck blank, you've got to saw it to shape, you've got to get a fingerboard, or you've got to get a truss rod, you've got to route the slot for the truss rod, you've got to cut the shapes, do the drilling, you've got to get this exactly the right shape, you've got to then carve this down somehow with physically, if you don't have a CNC machine, you've got to carve that shape into it and get it consistent all the way through, and so on. 25 quid to have this as a start point for me is actually not a bad deal at all, providing the basics, two things really, are in place. The first one is that it's not twisted and it hasn't got some sort of terrible curve built into it, and the next one is yeah, it's not twisted. And what else do I need about it? Well, I need the truss rod to work. And apart from that, there's not a lot else I need it to do in order to start with. So even if it was paying 25 quid for that, that isn't a bad start point for what I'm going to do to it and what I'm going to use it for. And I promise you, when I've finished this with some work and some relacquering with my decal on it, it's going to be a damn fine neck, and it will play as nice as anything that I've got. In fact, all the guitars I've got hanging up that I've kept and I play pretty much have all got either reclaimed or recycled or upcycled necks, right? So the fun part of doing this is I've done the cutting already, and now I just get stuck straight into it with my files. And if you like working with wood, here you are, you've got a free hand to shape something the way you want it to look and improve it. Now I'm going to shave this all back to nothing anyway, so I can afford to scuff up the lacquer as much as I like. I'm going to have to be careful, particularly so many things hanging up. Yeah, you know, and I can get into the curvy bits with a curved file, dig down into that. And if I'm in the mood, I could also get out my Dremel and take some of this material away with the Dremel. But I like working with hand tools. It's a nice feeling, and you can really feel, I have a feeling of being able to control the shapes as I go. And also, it doesn't matter that I'm clamping it in the vise for now, because I'm gonna get to sand this all back anyway, so I can get rid of any slight clamp marks. If I was really precious about this, I'd put it between two blocks, or put a kind of protector on the clamp on the vise there. But I don't need to do that here because it's quite a way off from being finished, and I've got quite a bit of sanding to do all over it. So as I say, I can just work my way to the shape I want. Again, it's all by feel and by eye, and you can see I'm getting there slowly but surely. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to get in, I want to get this top edge flat, which is something that the manufacturer failed to do. Now that could be because they did it by hand. I've been amazed to see, I saw a couple of videos online of Chinese factories and was amazed, astonished at the number of, whoops, that's cut me a little chunk out there, I'll be a little bit careful. I was astonished at the number of the number of processes I could see happening manually. You know, they were being done. Yeah, be careful, I'm pulling up some material. It's just a little bit. It'd probably be better to have done that bit with that curve with the, what to call it, this thing, the Dremel. So let's try that. Yeah, absolutely astonished at the number of processes that seem to be being done in this factory manually, where you'd think they'd be using CNC. Well, they didn't, and not only didn't they have CNC, a lot of the routing was being done purely freehand, which is quite something. It is a bit slow, but it's hopefully taking away some of the bulk material so I don't get any rip out from the other side. And if you've got the time, you could do it all like this, which is kind of smoother and gentler, but I tend to I like to sort of use files. I'm trying to restrict the amount of splintering it's doing. You do get some pull away depending on the grain on the back side, so if you notice it happening, then you probably want to be pulling the file towards you as opposed to pushing it away or missing this edge part. So I've got a little bit to fill there, but that'd be quite easy, or we could take it off in the flatten sanding down. We could do a bit more with this, but again, watching out that we don't tear the other side, which is the vulnerable part. There's something like a bit of an eye, a knot or something in this wood here below the surface, so I'm just cautious of that. So I'm just using it at a bit of an angle to try and protect the edge, and then I can bring this side back towards me. Hopefully we'll just straighten out where it was tearing, and then change to slightly newer one. So this is all good old-fashioned hand tool stuff, and I'm going to try and, there's a little bit here where I'm just going to try and miss out going any further, because that's our sort of limit of the thickness of the headstock, the maximum width of the shape I'm using, the Telecaster shape. So again, this is a bit quick, but I'd then probably use some more of this. And I can also put it on here just to smooth this out. Blending it into the rest of the neck there a little bit as well. You get it burning a little bit if you're not careful, but it's okay. Lovely smell when it burns. So, a while to go yet, and obviously I'm not going to get there in a hurry, but you can see it's starting to take shape, and you know, you can keep working on it. Again, just watching out for that sort of grain, so if possible you don't split any bits off, but you know, you're always a little bit of a risk of doing it, depending on, I suppose, the severity of your file or the roughness of the file you're using. You can go this way, it's probably a little bit safer, you won't tear off so much. Whichever way you feel comfortable with, really. That's the nice thing about wood and tools, you can pretty much get your own technique going after a while. I won't bore you with the rest of this filing, but you can see that I'm going to get, it won't be long before I get there. I do have a chip out that I'd like to replace. I don't know if it fell out. There's somewhere I can get hold of it. Did it go down here somewhere? If not, then I will fill it with something else. Don't think it did come out anywhere easily available, but yeah, once we've sanded that back, it will hardly be noticeable, and I'll fill it with a bit of wood filler. Yeah, it's not knocking around, ready to be used. Anyway, yeah, so that's a good fun. The other thing about doing this stuff, if you want to shape a neck, and again, £25, where can you go wrong? You can also use a blade. And the blade is quite nice because it will take off very fine amounts, but it will do it across in a sort of flat plane. If you're careful, you can see it kind of cutting a nice 90 degrees edge, and it will give you a very smooth finish actually. You know, be careful because it is taking material away each time, and if you're not careful you might get a dip in it. What I'm going to do when I come to it, to get a good edge on there, I'm going to use a technique I used the other day, which is I've got some 120 grit sandpaper on a leveling beam, which is really a flat spirit level, and I'm going to put these two things together on a block, kind of like this, but obviously it's not supported at the moment, and I'm going to run this up and down the block against this surface, so we're going to get this dead flat, so I'll just use a big piece of ply, probably about a centimetre thick ply to do this, maybe even my thicknessing box, put it on here, and then this will go along the this will run along the actual flat box, and we'll keep the two beautifully together and we'll get a nice square edge. So it's much better to do that than to try and pick this up and push it against a piece of sandpaper, or even to, maybe you could get it by sanding it smooth with a good block, but this technique is much better. You're using the flatness of the underlying surface to give you a nice flat edge on here. But like I say, if any stage you want to get to, and you want a really nice smooth finish, and it's nice because it's quiet and you can do this in the peace and quiet of your own kitchen table if you don't mind the little shavings. But a sharp blade is a really nice way to work with wood, and you can see it as you're coming up to your line, your guideline for example, and you can see exactly where it's cutting, flattening the wood, and you can see the bits that are sort of down or uneven, and then you can just, it's something nice about the speed of it. It's very human and very controllable. You're never doing too much at one time, so disasters aren't really going to just leap out and grab you abracadabra. Now at the moment I've still got some, you can still see at this stage there'll be file marks in there, and obviously you've got to keep an eye on that, because by the time you get done with it all you want those out of the way. But again, you can finish those off with, remove those with sandpaper towards the end of the process. Now this is not, it's not bad, and you have to kind of think about it as you're doing it. So when you get to here, there's a little bit of an edge here that you don't really want. So one of the things you're going to want to do is to, I'm using a much finer edge here, you're going to start to think about the transition on this guitar between this shape, these two shapes, and my aim will be to blend them as gently as possible so they look like they're kind of intended and they don't look too odd or out of place. Now again, it's a little bit of try it, try it and see, and there's a bit of sort of looking and trying and hand working. That's what I like about the process. It's very much eyeballing, and once you get nearly there you can see, okay, now with a bit of sandpaper I'm pretty much all the way there with that little blend. Smooth it off with some sandpaper. Obviously more work to do around here, on here and on here, but you can see I'm getting there. So I'm going to say, maybe save you the trouble of watching it. You can get the process of what I'm going to do with the square edge. I'm going to have this obviously lying. Well, you could, if we could just put this on the block, it's kind of almost better to be able to do the sanding like this with this thing flat, because this way up you're kind of sitting it a bit, there's a bit of more chance of it rocking. But it could be that we put the thing on and possibly clamp this anyway in place like that, so it's still beautifully right angles, and we get our thing, and we just do that up and down with the sandpaper. So either way, either that or that, whichever way we get the flattest clamp, we want a nice right angle on this. So I'm going to stop and come back when I've done all that. So there's nothing really else to it other than taking your time and being careful. I don't have any terribly sophisticated tools for this, and I'm doing as much as possible with these quite rough files. So I'm being cautious not to take too much away from any place in one go. Cautious of the bits that tear out, so I'm trying to sort of pull back on that. There goes my hacksaw. And again, here I'm trying to just cut in a little bit to get into this curve. Now if I'm nervous about that tear out, then you can go down a grade of file to kind of dual purposes, as on a fine wood or a fine metal file. But this will get nicely into the curve, and it's very much less likely to tear out the piece on the other side, but it will get you down into that bottom of that shape. And it's that shape that makes the guitar a Telecaster. You know, you can't really, well, a few other things too, but you know, it really is worth practicing these shapes, first of all getting the template you draw to correct, or as close as you can, and then practicing the sort of getting the curves into the wood. And it's not quite there yet, but you see when you get in there with the right curve, you know, that's the bit that makes it feel like a Telecaster when you've got those curves right. And like I say, it isn't perfect, but I'm doing it a bit by bit so that I know I can sort of stop when I've got to the place I think I've got that inner curve there, right in the corner, if you like. The other thing is, of course, by hand you've got to make sure you're keeping the tools as much as possible at a right angle to the piece, so you're not getting an undercut. And this is nearly there, and I'm going to be very careful now because I'm at about the right depth, but I've got quite a bit to take off on this edge of the curve, and that can be deceptively easy to take either too much or overcut the curve. So I'm just trying to be careful and bring it to the shape I want. You see that? I can hear that knot in the wood. It's actually below the surface, so it wasn't really visible before. So again, the nice thing is when you're working downwards, you can always just keep an eye, just stop above your line or before you reach your full extent of your line. And if you can do that, then you've always got a little bit more to play with. And the best way to do the fine tuning bits is with sandpaper. That will always give you a better finish, and you can get in there and curve it really nicely. I'm just going to take off a bit en masse if I can, bring this down to where I want it. So there's a couple of things I can do, as I say, to smooth that out. I can keep going in with that nice smooth fine file, or I could get in there with an even smaller Dremel drum, where I've got one knocking around here somewhere. That's almost worn out, but I've got a fair set more. Okay, a little one like this. It's actually quite good for getting right into that corner. So you can stick some new ones on before you start this. It would pay off a lot more, but it's quite an accurate little thing. Lock it into this corner and then up out. There you go, off it comes. That's pretty much useless. These little wheels don't last for long, unfortunately, but put another one on there and it might just hold it on for long enough. As I say, we're sort of getting there. There's a bit more to take off. I don't want it to be quite that bulbous at the end there, so there's a bit more to take off. Again, it's just a matter of filing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that, carry on with that off camera, and I'll come back when I'm doing the thing. Okay, so here's a quick demo of the principle. And we'll get there eventually. So that's the plan. Obviously, we want to avoid this great big lump of stuff, and maybe, yeah, it's not the best surface in the world I've ever used, but it's what I've got at the moment, so we could just chisel away off this urethane glue, polyurethane glue. Yeah, some stuff. Anyway, you could tidy it up more if you wanted to. I'm just going to put that under a bit more pressure. Right, so I can hold this, or I could find another way of clamping it, but for now I'm just holding it and just bringing the two together. And just trying to keep it running in a straight line, so we should get a nice straight line out of it. There is a bit of an area on this headstock that has been so badly cut that I don't want to go all the way towards what the word would be. I don't want to scrape all the way down to get out that last little curve, because it means I'd end up quite low down, quite thin on this piece. So I suspect we're going to get a little bit of curve there. Now this isn't scientific. The bar will move a bit. You could arrange a sort of something that pushes this a little bit more accurately, or like I said, if this was held down, then you could probably get both ends to contact this a little bit more reliably. Let's try, see what we can do. Yeah, got the lawnmower-y thing in here, which isn't helping affairs. It's just so I can do the grass again in a day or so. Okay, so yeah, I can just sort of push it a little bit, make sure it's against the wood the whole time. It's not too bad. Again, it's not scientific, you know. This is better than nothing, and I haven't clamped everything particularly the way I want to. But actually, overall, you're going to get a nicer surface out of this than trying to do it by hand or with a file. And that's pretty good. It's rubbing a bit on the surface here, but I don't mind that. So just to give you an idea of how it behaves or how it works. Yeah, so what we have down here now is a pretty flat thing up to about there, where we know there's a bit of tail off, which I don't really want to do. So I mean, we can concentrate on just sanding that bit out. That's the other way of doing this. There's quite a bit, there's a bit more left on this outline here to get rid of, which, to be honest, I would have probably ought to have. I've not got a lot of room at the moment. Not a lot of room. Not enough room, I think is the word I'm looking for. I could just probably just get it, remove it with the file still. You know, when you get into the sanding, the part with the block, you want to be close to your mark, and right now we're still quite a way off, so it's a bit premature, but take it down to the line as intended. I think what also you find is when you get closer to that line, you'll be closer to the straight line that we're aiming for. Yeah, that's nice, getting there. So I just hurried it along a bit. So yeah, it's on the mark. Now we can, I'll tell you what, before I do that, I'm just going to use the other side of the file to smooth it off a bit. This helps the process, gets rid of some of the broad scratches. But it helps to be as close and ready for the next tool in sequence as possible, to save labouring with time on something that's too far off the mark, really. So, nice flat edge that it didn't have before. You know, a bit messily arrived at. So how else could we do it? We could do it just hanging off the end here with a good single clamp on it. The reason I think it probably makes sense to have it somewhere in the middle rather than at the end, because there's clamping room at the end here, but I don't think we've got so much good run up on it. I can get a nice clamping. Let's get this out of the way. Yeah, so that's nicely clamped. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, as long as it's a good one-handed one, and as long as there's enough room for this to run, preferably a bit in both directions. But you can see it's doing the job, and it's staying pretty smooth, and there's quite a bit of sideways pressure to it. But nice. See, that is beginning to be as good as a factory square edge. So it's a pretty useful technique, but you do need this flat material. Something like ply, thick ply, or several layers of ply. That's very good. Now, if I was being a bit more careful, I'd probably have this also clamped so I can put force into it without it moving anywhere. And still see a little bit of irregularity at this far end, but we're going to shape that over. I can also you can also see pretty quickly, another technique that's really good to do is to lay on some pencil onto here. I don't worry, you know, if it goes over the side, because we've got all the surfaces to clean up anyway. So we lay on the pencil and then clamp it back down in place. Again, this is the stage at which you can afford to be a little bit careless, but a little bit rough with it, because we've got plenty of doing up time yet to come. Right, clamp it in place and then line up. These are very good things to have. They can act as leveling beams for frets if you want to do it that way, and they can do things like this because they're pretty much machined level and flat, which is great. Okay, so a quick look, you can see what happens is, so what we've got is a low spot here, here and here, and so it's kind of just telling us that if we want to get it absolutely precise, we'd want to keep on going until we level that out, and it's just a matter of time and attention. Get it positioned somewhere useful, and away you go. As I say, if I was to lock this in place with some clamps, I'm not sure I'll fit here, but let's clamp that into place. I've got a bit more force I can put into it now because nothing's going to move, hopefully. You can hear it cutting nicely, and you can feel the pencil coming off, and it's getting down to take away that last bit. You can knock off some of it and change the paper if you need to. This is ordinary sandpaper bought from my friend Paul at the Tavistock market, but I put double-sided sticky tape on it to make it function as self-adhesive, but it works really well. And again, we've just got a low spot there, and a tiny bit there, which we kind of know because it's been so badly cut down there, so we're not far off. We can also use the other end as well if we want. Good. This is a bit of movement here, but good sideways grip. Could clamp this down as well if we wanted to. Yeah, we're almost there. Just a little bit of a. You can't even feel it, but you know, the laws of physics are telling us there's a little depression there. But there's nothing quite as nice as a nice straight edge on something you're trying to work with. I think that will do me for now, and then I guess I'll get the sandpaper and I'll just work down the rest of these shapes now. So you can get this multi-functional, vari-purpose thicknessing jig box. What's it called? Sled, that's right. A router sled of some sort. Very, very handy for doing all my thicknessing stuff, and actually also for template sandpaper, sawdust in my eyes, for template cutting. Sawdust. Right, so now we've got, oh look, conveniently a couple of bits of stuff. Now, if we want to go to begin with a fairly rough grade, we're talking, is it 40? You know, you can just, again, this risks rounding it off a little bit, so depends on how confident you are with the paper, but I'm just going to dig it down a little bit more, maybe get to the end. And I think the important bit is to get round the ends of it too, so we can have it sort of sitting up here and work our way around the ends with this 40 grit. You can get a fairly good look at how rounded it is, and whether it's flattening anything off and you need to kind of rework it a little bit. It's not bad at all. Then you can get onto this bit here. Again, just working the file marks in, and just being aware of the curves on this. You know, this is the aim of this, is to have a nice flowing curve up and over this, so you can follow it and get into the corners with your edge of your block and so on. Now that's never going to make a perfect curve, but it's starting to get there. And of course, on top of that, then we need to do something else, which is quite amazing, which is this part of the game. And thankfully, this stuff, as you can see from how quickly it's starting to come off, isn't hugely thick, which is very lucky really. So it won't take us long to get down through that. Obviously I'm going to take off the frets first, so I was just doing that as to give you an idea of how relatively quickly we'll get down to the bare wood, thankfully. I like a thicker, usually a thicker finish personally, especially the poly. I think you know, quality thick poly finish gives you a sense of strength to the guitar. But this is, you know, this is really coming off no problem at all. And then we go down to the lighter grits and take it from there. Now these are the harder bits, holding this so you can get into here whilst keeping it sort of in the right elevation. It's not so easy, but the closer you get beforehand with the files, the less you're going to have to do now. But it's just a matter of patience and time to sit down and work at it. So we're getting very nearly to the place we want to be at. And of course the next stage in fully refurbishing this guitar neck is the all the frets. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the frets, actually throw them away, even though they've never been played, throw them away, and then sand out the whole of this neck and fingerboard together. And prior to finishing it, again by hand. Now I've done it in different ways at different times, and I prefer, by the way, this thing has had its day. This soldering iron, I'm going to have to buy a new one very soon. It's kind of worn out. Kind of, it is worn out. And I'm not going to get much more life out of it. So I'm just going to try and cut it down to as near to a flat tip. It's developing sort of teeth, almost pincers, because it's wearing away in the centre. I'm just trying to get down to as near to a spade finish as possible, but we're going to lose some at the end because we can't do it unless we lose some. I'm trying to get a bit of a flat-headed screwdriver feel. Yeah, that'll do. By the way, it's not on. Loose, but it's done up. So here we are kind of running out, but it will do for a few more jobs, including this one. So while we're at it, while we're on camera and running, let's do the next stage. So we're heating up that. I'm going to get this fella, I'll get this out of the way and hung up outside. You can see I need to tidy up. Number one task tonight will be to get this rally behind me up and running. I've got a new pickup arrived for it, so it's ready to be put back together again. All cleaned up nice, with some nice ding repairs too. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you down on the floating floater, angle you off there, and put you sort of down there, hopefully with not too much light dazzling you. You can see what I'm doing. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically, probably do it without actually, but I'm going to get some heat into these frets and I'm going to pull them. One of the things you can do, by the way, if you're happy, Robbie wants one of the guitars, can't see which. If sometimes what I do is, if you're not totally confident in getting these frets pulled out, and actually sometimes the difficult bit can be the start point, right? So I recommend you turn it around this way, whether that's counterintuitive or not. Turn it around so you start at the heel end, because if you're a right-handed player or you're doing this for a right-handed guitar, and if you gnarl up the edge a little tiny bit there, it's going to be less noticeable under the hand because only your thumb's along that edge, if anything. So it's a thing that I keep forgetting and then remembering. So for example, without any heat, I'm literally nibbling up the ends. Now these are pretty well pressed in. I mean, as in they fret them quite well. This company, it's called Kmise. I think it's known on AliExpress as Lot Music, Shenzhen Music or Lot Music, one of the two, maybe the same thing. Anyway, and they actually do a pretty good job fretting in my experience. The only problems I've had with their necks, really, apart from with the rosewood and maple paddle necks, which are really useful for me because I can make any shape I like out of them. With those, I've had a sort of maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 15 reject rate. Which in a way is par for the course with a cheap neck. But with these maple ones, it's pretty much 100% reject rate. So I did say to Robbie, don't buy the Kmise maple necks. But if he hadn't have done, then I wouldn't be doing this right now with this one. So I'm kind of sneakily grateful he didn't take my advice, or missed it, or didn't see the note. Anyway, so what I've just done there is I've gone along and I've just lifted up the ends of each of these. Now with this guitar, with this neck, you could probably just pull them all out straight off, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a little bit of warmth using the soldering iron, just to sort of soften up if any glue, if there is any, and then just kind of walk along with that warmth and just gently walk the fret out. Now in some ways it seems like a real crazy thing to do because this neck hasn't even been played, but I have to say, when you see the finished product, when I've got it redone with nice jumbo frets, I've got it into a nice, probably more of a much more subtle, maybe a tiny bit of amber into the lacquer, or you know, maybe just maybe even not, maybe just a plain clear gloss, or maybe even a clear matte. Or oh, see, this is what you get. You get a little bit of pull up occasionally. Now that on the amber colour looks a bit bad, but by the time we've sanded that down, you won't notice that, and then we put a nice jumbo fret on top, it will be barely noticeable. Obviously the whole point of this is to try and minimise that tear out, so you know, walk the fret right to its end if you can, as I'm doing here, but once in a while you will get that. Now this is going to, these soldering irons are the cheap ones, and they don't like staying on for long soldering sessions, and if they do tend to melt in the middle. But actually I've had, in some ways I've had my £7 worth out of this. I could really go and buy another one tomorrow and it still wouldn't have been a bad deal. Something about when you buy an expensive Weller one from somewhere like Amazon, and then two, one after another for about 25 to 30 quid breaks on you, that's when you don't feel so good about it, even though really I've used them a lot, you know. I shouldn't really be complaining. Anyway, so here we go. Now, so when you're refretting like this, or defretting, the thing we're going to do is we're going to then sand back this fingerboard. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it with a 16-inch radius block, because I know these factories, the Chinese factories, make these with 16-inch radius, which is a really, for them it's a good compromise modern radius. It feels a bit too flat for the vintage Strat player of old. However, it is a really good commercial compromise for, you know, these Chinese manufacturers, because it is flat enough to allow you to set quite a low action, usually without choking off the bends. With vintage radii like 9.5s or below, one struggles to set both, to get both a low action and to be able to bend, do large bends on your strings. You can have one one or the other, but not both. So if your bends are critical, you have to have a higher action, and if you don't play bends, then you can have a lower action. Now with a 16-inch radius, you almost never run into that problem, and I don't mind them. I've got used to them. I say some people would probably absolutely hate them, but yeah, they work. So I'm going to sand this down with a 16-inch radius block, just to make sure I don't change the shape of this this fingerboard. There's no need to change it. I mean, we could, if somebody said, look, I really want this to be a 12-inch radius, then we could sand this existing thing down around at the edges and to basically make a more curved radius. There's quite a lot of hard work involved in that, and it's never perfect unless you've got a machine to help you do it, but by hand it seems to never quite get there, so you're always making a kind of compromise, and usually trying to kind of overbend the frets to get them to go the last little bit that you're radiusing by hand didn't quite get to. It's always a bit here and there, hit and miss. Okay, so that's my frets out. Look at that. So this now is changing quite substantially. Oops. There we are. So now we have the new old frets, which, you know, some people might find a travesty to just chuck them away, but it's not really about what they cost or what, you know, it's about what are we aiming for. We're aiming for a really nice neck that will suit our purposes. So we have 10, 7.3, this must be the 16 one here. It is indeed. So we've got 16-inch radius here. I haven't got any big pieces, but let's just take a small piece to start with, just to get going. And to show you that it won't actually take that long. So we have 16-inch radius block, and I'm just going to put this on here and say, okay, let's make the amber go away. Now what you'll probably find is that these dots may go away as well, because they are probably barely on the surface of this. So we'll just be on the watch out for that, on the lookout. It's interesting, you can see that although this block is set, what was that? Oh, the plug. This block is set as a 16-inch radius. You can see that it's not quite the same as the 16-inch radius on this neck, hence the strip in the middle that is still not quite reached. But that's fine, whatever it is, we can work with it. It just means that come the time that we'll come to bend some wire for the frets, I just need to make sure that it suits this actual fingerboard, whatever its radius actually is. So I'm just kind of putting a bit of force into this now to get this down to 16 all the way across. If you were lazy like me, you could do a little bit of a cheat, which would look, that's already been used. Oh, well, could do a little cheat that looks a bit like this. And take the remainder off, and then go back to radiusing. This is a little cheaty, but we'll get there in the end the same way. Depends on if you're in a hurry or not. Now technically we are putting potentially very minor flat spots into the fingerboard if we're not careful, if we stay too long in one spot. But you know, one's fingers are less accurate than a block in terms of transposing that radius across. But just wanted you to get a look at it with the stuff off. A bit of colour still on here, which I can remove a bit there. Never seems to work with two pieces back to back folded over. I don't know why I keep on doing it. Anyway, so here we have our slightly refreshed neck. Now what I want to do as well, run out of compressed air, but we have obviously, as you're doing this, your slots fill up with goo. Now what I would suggest is that sometimes, if I was in a hurry to just refret this, I might preserve these end fills here. In this one, because I'm going to re-lacquer anyway, there's no real reason to preserve them, because I can just put lacquer over the top of them again, hopefully, and make a little seal. Depends how strong. They're actually quite strong, so maybe no, I'm going to take them off anyway by sanding them. So we aren't really, it's going to be academic really, because once I sand off the lacquer on the outside, it'll probably be too thin. But you have an issue about how you finish the ends of the frets. If you aren't confident about what you will do at that end of the frets, then try, if you're not doing what I'm doing, if you're not having to lacquer the whole neck and sand it down, then the advice would be try to preserve these end pieces, because you can kind of fret over and around them as if they were binding, and that's actually gives you a very tidy, finished, professional look, which is kind of more, in a way, more professional finish than you could get with your own methods probably, and you haven't really had to do anything for it, you've just left those untouched. Now that isn't going to be the case here, because this process of sanding all of the neck to totally refinish it is going to likely to cost us those end pieces. So I'm not really even sure why I'm spending too much time digging these out. But this would be the sort of process you'd go through if you're trying to preserve those end nibs or fills or whatever you call it. They're not nibs like in the Gibson sense, but they're little lacquer fills, make it look tidy. So you know, you could be sort of heading towards getting those cleaned out, in which case you could pretty much fret over these edges, so you could leave all that nicely intact. But the problem is, obviously, I'm not going to respect those. I'm going to begin with, I'm just going to go over the top of them and see what happens. Now, if having gone over the top of them, we're still left with enough material to act as a fill, then okay, maybe we could still work to preserve them. But I'm sort of going in full blast to get rid of the old lacquer here, without too much worry about precise edgings and so on. But well, you know, they're kind of already, they're still there, so actually I could go over that without disturbing it and add another layer of better coloured lacquer to the outside, which is kind of the plan. So as you can see on that side, it's still filled, so why destroy them? Well, the reason you might destroy them is to get cleaned out completely, because in order of priorities, cleaning out the slots before you refret is probably one of the most important contributors to a good refret. If you can get those slots fully cleaned out, chances of seating your new frets well is far higher, and if you can seat them well, the chances of a really nice feeling refret that plays great from the outset is also much higher too. And there's, you know, when we refret, we sort of always assume that we're likely to have to do some fret leveling, but actually once in a while you can get it just well enough so you don't have to, and that's a real treat when you don't have to, because obviously it saves time, and on top of that it makes you feel like a bit of a superhero for having fretted the thing so well. You know, you did everything so well you didn't even need to fret level. So if I wanted to kind of prove that point, I could probably go ahead and just get ready to refret with these existing slots. But I have to say, for the sake of preserving those little end fills, it's probably introducing a bit more uncertainty about the seating of the frets, and is really worth the time saved in the, you know, not having to refill it myself. Right. Now the other thing is, many guitars have frets that come all the way to the end of the slot and kind of get filed off, showing both the tang and the crown of the fret, and that's quite common. Lots of, especially vintage strats and things like that, it's a very common thing. I've mixed feelings about that. I mean, it works, can look fine, but I've actually found it quite difficult to cut the frets in such a way that they end up untwisted or straight in the slots. They twist very easily when you cut them, and in order to not include that twist in your finished visible fret, you have to basically cut off quite an extra, or leave an extra overhang, quite a lot of material, which in a way is a bit more wasteful, and mean the difference between getting it done in 2 pieces of sumac wire, or finding yourself needing 2 pieces plus 1 from the next piece, which then means you aren't going to get the next guitar out of 2 pieces either, because you've just borrowed some material in advance, so not ideal. Okay, now in a way, if you were thinking about colour, you could sort of try to sand this in such a way that it preserves some of the colour that you can then refinish over, but the problem with that is it's very difficult to get a consistent finish if you're leaving some stuff behind. So I think it's easier from my perspective to take this back to wood and then redo it with a lacquer that has either a known amount of amber in the material, so it's a consistent colour, or one in which maybe you stain the wood first before you apply lacquer, in which case the stain is also a known quantity, because it usually will take fairly evenly across the whole piece. Okay, so you can see with a bit of elbow grease and so on, we're heading towards having this piece stripped and ready for action. And the next question that I would be thinking about at this point is, how's it getting on? Are we still in a go situation? You think of a NASA Capcom, finishing. Oh, we go. So it's looking okay. Nice figuring on there. Nice grain, I should say. So far, is everything looking like it's a goer for this neck? And I would say yes. Now, it would be smart at one point now to test the truss rod, right? Because it only takes a few seconds to do, and if for some strange reason the Chinese have supplied this with a defunct truss rod, it's so much better to know this now than it is to find out once you've fretted it with 20 quid's worth of expensive jumbo fret and all the time that takes to do. So in a way you'd probably make a lot more sense to do that right at the beginning, but I didn't. I've assumed that it works, which is a very foolish thing to do, as you know. Right. So I've reverted to a block for the heel because I want the heel as flat as possible, and I don't want to risk introducing, or I want to introduce as little unevenness as possible into it. So the block is a much better device for sanding this rather than your hand. Okay. Nice little bits of colour still on there. And then the only bit of colour still left behind is in there and under there, which again you can probably take out if it bothers us, although it would never really be seen. For consistency's sake, we can work all the way around there. Yeah, we won't get it all out because there's some overspill of glue as well, which is complicating it, but we get most of it. And if anything, get the stuff up by the fingerboard, which may show from underneath the scratch plate or near the neck join. It's not so important if that's still got the lacquer or the original colour on it, because it would be by and large invisible. So it doesn't really make sense doing too much where you can't actually see something. Right. Okay, so after all that gasping and whatnot, what have we got? Well, we've got a neck that still has the end fills in place, which we could keep purely for the sort of added advantage of minimal, no, not minimal, for tidiness. It will be a tidy finish, probably a little bit more tidy than I could do it with lacquer alone, probably. And it's sort of ready done, which is quite nice. The challenge anyway, as I said, in leaving those end fills in, is that when we come to prepare the slots for refretting, we just have to be very good at getting all of the stuff out of there. Now, I'm thinking about this, if we lacquer this in one go, the thing we have to do is cut through the finished lacquer. There isn't an easy way of, let's say, putting a load of blades. Well, maybe you could put a bunch of blade offcuts into there, but then you can't lacquer it and buff it. The beauty of doing it in one piece is you get you can sand it with a radius block so that you get a nice smooth lacquer profile out of it, and you can also you should then be able to buff it out as a single piece rather than trying to buff in between frets, which you really can't practically do. So my feeling would be, for that purpose, in fact we're going to probably have to cut our way through later anyway, is this probably just needs cutting through now, and to hell with it. Now we don't really even need to do it now, we just need to do it, be prepared to do it later when we cut the lacquer out of these slots. And as I said, it's potentially you could try and fill them, but you'd have to fill flush, and then how would you get that out? It's always been a bit of a challenge. In some ways it's quite pretty, or it's quite effective if you put the frets in first, then lacquer, and then scrape away, basically clean the lacquer off the frets. If you're only doing a very light finish, that's feasible to do, but you still can't get in and buff the single piece. I did one before which I messed up in some ways, but because I was a bit impatient, but I don't know if you can see this, but forget the scratches in it. Here's one where I actually did it as a single piece, and as you can see I've buffed it out as a single piece with and cut out these. Now it took a little time to cut those out, and a couple of places I've skidded and gone scraping across the material and had to fill it, and so it's not perfect at all. And actually this neck was an absolute, this was a Kmise duffer, complete duffer, which I've no, it wasn't Kmise, I'm sorry, this was a Marlin, but it was completely screwed, so I've done all kinds of stuff to it. And maybe it will get used one day, but or it may just be for the fun of it being the first thing I think I buffed on my wheel. But in real terms, I think we have to just go with cleaning out these slots, basically, whether we like it or not, filling them again with lacquer as we do the finish, and then cleaning that out with a saw at the far end of the process. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just sort of cutting the end nibs out of the way. Like I said, they're great to reuse those little fills if you're just working with, you're not refinishing the whole neck, but in this case, because we've done a reshape and everything, we clearly are, so it'd just be a hindrance to try and do this with those fills in the end. So I'm just at this point in time just doing as much as I can to clean any sort of hard material, dust and end fills out of the way, using my Japanese fret slot. And then what I'll do after that is also, sorry, the reason I'm doing that is it makes it easy to get all the dust out of this right now, and then we'll clean up this this neck with some white spirits, or sorry, some naphtha, and then basically it's ready to get ready for putting on a finish, whether it's nitrocellulose. I'll just go over it again because the saw makes just a couple of impressions, leaves a few marks, so tidy that up a bit if I can. Right, so we are there. Now, see, this is the story of it, right? A bit more sanding to do here to smooth. We could even go with it like that. It's pretty much there. Now that's a £25 neck. As it happens, it's a reject. But by the time we check now the what do you call it, the thing, truss rod, and check that it works, and if that works, then I would say we're on to refinish this, and what we'll have at the end of it is actually, all things being equal, will be a very nice playing maple neck, custom finished. So I'm looking to see this now bend into a back bow, which is exactly what it's doing, which is great, and it's showing me that the thing is working as it should do. So for now I want to slacken that off again, just relax it. This actually, I think this is a two-way one, so we can actually end up getting some concavity if we wanted it. Right, so again it's just a matter of looking this thing over, maybe doing a bit of, in quiet spot, doing a little bit of sanding there to just smooth it out, but again eventually you know, your lacquer layers will smooth it out. having a think what it's going to be for. Right now I don't really know, so it could be I just leave it like this for a while until I've decided what it's going on and therefore what sort of tint it might have. But we could have a rosewood tint on it, we could have pretty much anything we want, and also of course we'll have a Morris thing on it. Now that's got rid of the kind of crappiness of the original shaping where they made the mistakes. With the headstock, sorry, with the truss rod working, I'm gonna, what am I going to do? Let's have a look. We have got a load of vintage fret wire in here. Not a great fan of it myself, but I've never really looked at it. I know that I'm thinking about I might be using some of this on JT's custom strat. I know I've got to give him a call in a minute. So we have some really fine fret wire. Now that is kind of totally vintage, man. Whew. But it feels right on this flat radius thing. Now that is amazingly fine. I wouldn't know how to play a guitar with this little fret wire. How did I end up buying this? But yeah, God, it's beautiful. I wonder what the actual height of it is when installed. Otherwise it's probably never going to get used, because my tendency is always to go for the big sort of great jumbo stuff. But 128, that's not bad at all. It's just very elegant. What should we do? Should we go with it? That's so different. What do you think? We got tons of it. I mean, we got plenty of spare stuff. Oh, thoughts. I don't know. We're going to use some. I'm pretty sure I'm going to use. Let's try some on this. Come on, why not? Because I haven't used this stuff before, and I'm going to use it on JT's. So I suppose that if I'm going to at some point put it on here, then it might be worth just trying it. That's not where I want it to go. It might be worth just trying it out and see. Now what we don't have, of course, is a radius in it at this point. Oh! And I need a 16 radius, which is not going to be far off that anyway, because I think we were. Let's just see what we've got already keyed into here. Yeah, that's pretty flat. Well, it's flat for that gauge of wire, that's the only thing. So let's crank it up to there. The different size, we need a different setting for the same, to achieve the same radius result. Can't be too tight. Yeah, way too tight. Bend it back. Slack it off. Try it again from the other end. That looks about right. That's spot on actually. Now I can't obviously do that one, so we'll call that one right off for a minute and bend it by hand towards the end if we need to. Sorry, that was a brain off moment. Let's just bend these other three while we're at it. Yeah, something different. Give myself a try out with fine. Oh shit! No, that is not very clever. That's definitely not what I wanted to happen. Shoved that in sideways and it's gone in sideways and distorted. That's not what we want. So this is a bit difficult to handle compared to what I'm used to. So I have to get used to it. I'll get used to being more careful. It tries to fold its way in sideways if you're not careful. And finally, wow, it's just too small for its own good. But what the heck? I mean, I can always pull it out and throw it away. Right, so with this one, we've probably got quite deep cut slots. So let's just overcut them. I don't really mind using more rather than less of this stuff. That's got a bit of a twist on it. Let's get that in right first of all. Okay, you go there. Okay, I'm probably wasting too much now. Let's just get back to reality here. The reason I'm trying to go, as I mentioned before, trying to get cut over length, although that's not very efficient. I want enough room to undo any twisting that's going on in the tang, and I can't do that if I go dead to length. But this tang is so short that you're probably hardly even going to notice it's there. So not much to get tangled or twisted or gnarled. Wow, it's so subtle. And this might be my conversion, don't you think, to ultra skinny frets. I'm spending fret wire like there's no tomorrow. I might have to break into a second sachet. Now we might be able to switch one of these for one of those and get away with it width-wise. Yeah, probably more like it. 2 more bits. The thing about the jumbo wire that I like is that it does give me loads of leeway to level and get things perfect. With the thinner stuff, lower stuff, if the fretting isn't great, then I'm up against it straight away, and I will potentially lose too much metal in order to get it level, to make it play. Now with a 16-inch radius, that's not such a bad thing here, because it's there you go, I'll switch that out. If I can, 16-inch radius. What was I going to say? A 16-inch radius is much more forgiving anyway in terms of the bends and so on, so we should be able to get away with it. I'm just wondering if I can double up here and save a piece. It's not quite as long as I'd like, but it's probably enough. I can reuse this somewhere down here, maybe. Yeah. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. There's a twist in here already, it's annoying me. Okay, and then this one down here. So I'm hoping, can I get the remainder of this done with one? I don't think so. So it means I'll be into another set. But like I say, I really haven't really put these to use at all, so it probably makes sense to just use them. Otherwise they're sitting around waiting for somebody who by chance wants ultra thin frets. So let's get another pack out and take one off that. So it still leaves us, whatever happens, still leaves us with one whole set ready for use another time, i.e. on JTs if necessary. Speaking of which, I will give them a call in a minute. Should probably get away with just one of these actually. Now I've just got a feeling that this is not the same gauge of wire. How did I get 2 different sets mixed up? Bah, this isn't the same gauge. Holy cow. I have definitely not got a complete set. Oh no! I've fooled myself. Okay, look, that was dopey. That really was dopey. And I wouldn't get a set, I wouldn't get JT's guitar out of it. Okay. I wouldn't, no, there's not enough in that set. Right, rethink time. Let's go with this larger gauge, which is kicking around, not being used. Oh! Right, first things first, let's get all of these bent so we can use them at least. Damn, how did that happen? So this is the wrong gauge for start, because it's the wrong wire, so we have to reshape it and re-radius it. It's just so unfair. It's so unfair. How did that happen? Okay, it's a bit over 16. So now we've got a set of things that don't really fit anything. Darn. That'll do. Straighten this out. Oh, well, okay, well, they're still thinner than jumbo, or smaller than jumbo, but they're not as small as I was thinking they're going to be. But that's okay. This is one of my Telecaster style necks, so meh. Okay. That's what you get from putting things in the same place. Now this has come out a different curl. Oh, hellfire. I got a horrible feeling there's potentially 3 gauges in this tube, which is no use at all. Those are all the same. I don't think these are. That one goes with that one, that one goes with that one. So this is one way of telling when you've got mixtures of gauges and you didn't intend to. So what I've got now is I've got 3 different gauges going on in this stupid little container, which is absolutely no bleeding use to me at all, because none of them is big enough to make a set. So I bet you this is also the same as that first lot. Let's try it out. I bet you it is. No, that's the same as, no, it's different again. Let's just try it one more time. Well, there we go, that's interesting. So I'm going to have to stash this set of ultra vintage thin frets for another day. So this is a different gauge again. So we've got, as I say, we've got, what's this? Is that the same? No. That's a different gauge. That's a different gauge. That's the same as that. That's the same as that. That's different from that. So yeah, literally 3 different gauges. We might just make it with these. These are spare extra pieces. I think I can match them up to the correct gauge, thankfully. It's a bit like intonation, this. You see what the stuff is doing and it tells you where it falls. So that falls with that one, not with these. So what we've got here. Who knows? Who knows? Well, this is the real moral of the story here, folks, is if you keep fret wire, label it or something, identify it early while you still can. Otherwise you're going to be in this position with a load of material that you really can't specify what it is. And the danger of that is, without knowing what it is now, we may end up not being able to use any of it. Or without, at least we may, but it may require loads of measuring and arsing about. Sorry. Which you could pretty much do without it any day of the week. So that's pretty flat. That goes with those more like. But right. Okay, 0 this. 241. 241, 268. I don't even know what that tallies with. 241, 268, that's 236, 213. Different. Again, it's really difficult to see where you're getting the Y point. 191, 272. 191, 272. Let's see if we can get anywhere close with this. 261, 240. 266, 230. So I have to say I'm not confident. Let's just check these two here. 0. 281 and 201. Wow, that's quite narrow, isn't it? 281, 200. Then we go 289, 288, 250. 288, 200, 288, 250. 270, 270, 240. 240, 260. Well, we are now in a quandary, and I think what I'm going to do, 235 and 260. What I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to bunch these up again and go into more careful measurement and see if they're even usable. And in the meantime I will go back to a known quantity. This seems a bit silly, but I'm pretty certain there are these three different, slightly different gauges going on here, and actually none of them are going to be quite enough to do a single guitar, whereas in my jumbo wire I have enough, and in my medium wire I have enough. Just I don't have enough. Do I have it in the medium? Yeah, just about. I don't have enough in the ultra thin wire, which is this. But I do have now a radius set, which I can pull out and stick into something. Well, I can't stick it into anything, so what I tend to do, it's not a set actually, it's -3. Is there any point? Arguably not. But we'll see if we find any others on the way. That was clever. Let's just put this back here for a moment. I wouldn't, even if I'd been a little more careful with the cutting, I still wouldn't have got those last 3 frets in. Okay, so look, I've got me a fly paper's worth, which is what I like to do to capture them, and then I'll hang them up somewhere. But I will note that we're -3. Minus last 3 frets, and I have to worry about that later. And then these will sit there for a minute and I'll worry about it. Now I've got some Evo Gold, down there, which I don't really want to use. I've got some medium, which I think I need to use really for JTs rather than this, and I've got jumbo stuff here, which I like to play with, so what the hell, I'll make a set ready for this one. It's always the way. I've got a set of frets there, which were going to be, hang on, let's just hold fire a minute. These were going to be for that strat there. What radius are they? I have a feeling I would have done them at 16. Yeah, just under 16. So are they 12? Or are they 14? No, they're more than 16. Are they more than 16? No, they're curved here. That's right. Let's just have a look. Do we have enough? Because if so, I'm going to use this set on here rather than the other thing. these are already been edged. Right, this is a bit of a waste of sticky tape in a minute, but so I've sort of tried to, right, these have been cut with an overhang as if I was using filling in the ends, but I've got to fill in the ends anyway, so I might as well cut with an overhang or use a set that's pre-cut with an overhang. Now, as I said, these are slightly curvier than the actual radius of this neck, but by how much? Let's have a quick feel. No, not too much. That will do. Right, let's put this set to work, because otherwise I'm just cutting more and more frets for no good reason. So all I'm doing now is just literally going through to make sure the width, sorry, there you are, the width works. This is a bit of a get out of jail really, because I forgot I had these. I was going to put them on that marlin neck, but that's not really destined for anywhere just yet. It was more of a kind of trial than anything else. So this would be a much better use of these, and it saves me a bit more of my material, because in 3 jumbo fretted guitars from now I'm going to be having to order more from Stumac, which is where I like to get my fret wire from. Okay, so this is not so bad. Just make sure we've got enough. Don't tell me we're going to end up with it's a 21 fret neck and you've got 22 frets on here. Actually, I think I am 1 fret short. Right, in this case I will measure these up against one of them, and if it's the last one, no, look at this, I'm miraculously 2 frets short. No, 1. Right. Okay, let's get a measure of this. I don't know why I was 1 short on there, but let's get it on. Get it on, I said. 0. Okay. Our existing frets are, as good as I can work it out, 244. Let's write it down so I don't forget this. 244 width. Was it width? 244 width and 270 high, 271-ish. Okay, 244 width and 271 high. .244 and 270. That's the one. Hurrah! Well, isn't that lucky? Let's just check this now. Where's the curves? I just want to make sure it's got a decent curve in it. Sometimes when you get a piece like this, it's been a bit off bent at one end. Right. So I'm going to cut one to match, and then I'm going to keep the others as a spare, and I really want to hang it somewhere so we know. And I'll put it up in the top corner of the whiteboard. Sorry this is so drearily boring, but you have to go through this stuff when you're trying to work out what to do. Now I've got me a set of a bit of paper which I can use in a minute, but first of all I'm going to do the underhang cutting thing with my fret nibbling thing so that we're in the same condition with all these frets. And then you do it and you get a bloody thing, get it biting incorrect. Well, luckily I've got some spare material if I have to. That nibbling, fret end nibbling tool sometimes just takes too much, no matter how careful you try to be. And what you can end up with is a lifting overhang which doesn't want to sit down then. So I'll try to get rid of as much of that lifting part as possible, and if it's then too short, no, we're okay. We'd have to cut a new one. Okay. A little bit more will be alright. It's this bit when you try and cut more off, it tends to push up the overhanging part. Okay, so there we have it. That's our full set, beautiful, for our this thing, and it's all the same. Right, and then I'm going to stick that on there like that. Get them all. yeah, so it's a quick change from vintage style thin things to medium jumbo things, but that's the way it goes. Right, I'm going to stick that up there, and I'm going to right next to it. What's this? This is, I'm going to call it Robbie Maple set. Now, this set in the middle here is ultra thin. We don't know what the heck that's going to be for. And this set here, what do we know that's for? I don't know, lost track. Utterly and completely lost track. Ow, 3 sets. Right, let's just get these out of the way. Okay, right, so final part in this before I shut up shop for now and get on to the other thing I had to do, which was right, I've lost track now. I can't see anything. Here it is. It's a mess. Yeah, I'm going to just clean this off, and then I can basically think about how I'm going to finish it. Like I say, if I do it with wipe-on poly, it's kind of convenient because I can do it in the house and take my time, and it's far less toxic or messy. Obviously I want to keep this away from the sawdust as I'm cleaning it up. Over there. So not bad at all. Pretty much ready to go. So on the front, sides, and down here. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. That's not a bad neck, ready for lacquering. And just a couple of bits of paper out of it, like that. Throw some blades around, frighten people. Yeah, but that's, yeah, transformation from a reject to, it would be slightly unusual that it's got a strat end to it. I don't mind that. I can make that work with any of my guitars. Right, so I need to hang it from somewhere. No room and so on, but I'll just hang it there for now. Alright, there you go. I might try to take you inside and show you a bit of the, later on show you a bit of the lacquering process if you're interested, and then we can try and get all of it on one video. Okay, well I just conked out there for no good reason. Yeah, so what started life as a malformed, misshapen attempt at a strat style neck has now become a repurposed Telecaster neck, and what I've chosen to do on this side, and I'll see on this neck, I'll see if I can show you by turning it over-ish. What I've chosen to do is I'm lacquering the neck in one go on this side, or poly coating the neck on this side, and after each coat or each paint and sponge, I'm cleaning out the slots, so that at the end of this, the plan is that I can flat it all in one go. I don't need to do too much flatting, 600, 1000 briefly, and then 1500 briefly, and then that will go onto the buffer and it will do a really nice polish, and then I'll fret it after that because I'll have kept cleaning out the slots as I go, and it's really important to do that. What I actually might just do is I might just clean out, I might just use the fret saw to cut the slots one more time before I buff it, and then I'll be absolutely certain of having free running fret slots, and that's really important. I don't know what the numbers are saying on here, but hey. Right, so that's going to sit for about, I guess, half an hour, and I just occasionally it's worth just checking to see there's no blobs or anything building up, and you can just, if there is, you can just come and lightly drag the sponge over it. Obviously for the next layer, what I'm going to want to do is take these sponges that I've now cleaned out and dry them out, squeeze them into some tissue paper, and then just have them here ready for the next coat, and they are pretty thick coats. Sometimes I start out with a piece of cloth, but to be honest, I don't find it works very well for me. Right, okay, I'm going to stop right now and see you for the next bit, which will be the front side. Only a split second. Right, we're running. Yeah, we're running. Okay, so I'm just going to do this piece. Yeah, so what we've got here is I'm going to do the front side of it, and you can see I've done it already. This is dry, so I'm just going to paint some more on, like this. I've just about used all this stuff up now, so it's going to be time to let it set overnight or dry overnight, and then flat it back tomorrow, and then see whether it needs any more. If it doesn't need any more, then I can pretty much go straight to buffing if I want to, or go to finer papers. Oops. Anyway, so this is the idea. It's a nice, I can do this indoors without any fumes or anything, so whereas with nitro it's a stinky process, this is much safer and more environmentally friendly. I'm just spreading that all out. Right, and then we use the sponge, which will dry out quickly. And I know I've spilled some under here, so I'm just going to sort that out first.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm trying to be quiet.
real life going on in the background.
I'm trying to be quiet and make more noise.
That's right. So just using the sponge here to flatten it out and take away most of the bubbles, and then same on the headstock. Right, this one video is going to be very short, so I'm just going to, you can make loads of noise in a second. Right, so all I want to just show next is, while it's setting, or from here on, what I'm going to get is my convenient object, and I'm just going to go down each of these frets and dig out the stuff that's gone in there. Now at the moment it's quite a lot because I laid it on a bit thick, but I'm just being careful to dig out as much as I can, and then I'll use the sponge again to spread the stuff sort of up and down the fret. So it's just making sure I clean out the slots as I go, and so that when we come to do the refretting, I'll still use the saw probably at once to clean the slots out, but I won't have to cut all the way through a sort of solid wall of poly, which it's just easier to be cleaning these out as we go. As you can see, there's quite a bit that goes in there, but this little toy ruler that came with some cheap Chinese tools or something has expensive Chinese tools has come in really handy as a perfect gauge of scraper tool. Anyway, oops. Right, so once again I'll take one of these sponges, and then I'll just go this way now, just to try and move get any bits off. We're just basically flattening off the lacquer that we dug out of the hole, and then I'll come back a bit later on and do another working over with that little ruler thing, just to make sure that it's as flattened out as possible. Okay, so that's that, and then flip it over, do the other side, and then I'll use all this stuff up, pretty much all gone now, and then leave it to set tomorrow, and see whether we sand it back tomorrow and put it on the buffer. Alright. A few years ago in business, and I was very lucky. I think I might have told you this story before, but I was very lucky. I got my client was very happy for me to stay beyond the end of a meeting or a project that we were doing, and I had a couple of days just walking Manhattan on my own, and never been there before. You know, to go there as a sort of an oldish guy, it's quite interesting, because you've had unlike, you know, if I went there when I was 20 or something, by the time I'm in my late 40s, as I was, late 40s, yeah, something like that, nearly 50, to see New York when you're 50 you've had 50 years of Hollywood and other cultural references, which is really weird. So the first thing is I didn't like it. I couldn't say I liked it. I found it quite a scary place in some ways, but I was captivated by it in others, and there's a part of you that knows it, because if you're this age, certainly I can only speak for UK people, but British people and of course American people know it in a different way, but British people will have grown up, of my age, will have grown up on a diet of certain films and certain TV series, so that they will have seem to have a particular take or an impression of New York, which is really quite weird. It is partly films, it's partly sitcoms or TV series. Oh look, this one isn't fretted either. No, that one probably needs... Did I cut this one? I think I did, and then I think what happened was I think I scratched... Oh no, I didn't cut it with a saw. I think I actually did it with a blade, and then I ended up slicing the finish, causing me to have to redo it. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, I went there and I loved it, and it was just so odd walking around, and I walked till I was exhausted. It was kind of December time, and freezing cold and footsore and full of darkness and lights and so on and so on. And one of the abiding memories I have of New York from all the years before I ever went there was the early 80s Simon and Garfunkel concert in Central Park, which I remember watching on the earliest, I think it was Betamax video players, and I loved that concert. It was like a special moment in time, them getting back together again to do it, and so on and so on. Anyway, so Central Park and New York always reminded me of Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel. I remember going in there and freezing cold, feet exhausted, aching, sitting down and just sitting on a park bench soaking up the sun, while people skated on the ice rink. And I heard some guitar chords from in the distance, and I walked through the lanes, the walkways in the park, and came across an Oriental guy actually playing a little guitar. I think it was probably a Baby Martin or something like that, or it could even have been a Baby Taylor, or Taylor Baby, before I knew what was what, I think. And he was playing Paul Simon's Slip Sliding Away, which was so right for Central Park, because I was kind of already full of memories of that concert. So yeah, it's just a little recollection there. Maybe that's what I should do while I'm... That's probably what I should do when I'm working on guitars. It's just, since I'm going to be, what is it, waffling on, I've forgotten what my t-shirt says, rabbiting on or something, while I'm dilly-dallying. Maybe I should sort of cover every little place I've ever visited. I remember once doing some writing, because I used to like to write. I kind of still do occasionally, but you know, when you're younger and you're all idealistic and you think you're writing for some good historic reason. Anyway, I used to write, and I could never have the discipline to write a book or anything like that. And I tried to work out a way of writing. You know, how can you discipline yourself to write? So one way I discovered was, or I thought was, to take each album, or a bunch of significant albums that I had liked or that meant something to me, and to start writing as the album began, and then just recollect something, whatever that album brought up, you know, as a sort of key memory of the time that what I was doing when I first heard it, I think, or anything significantly about it. And then sort of write until the album stopped, and then just have the discipline to stop when the album ended. Which I enjoyed as a process, but kind of weird because of course they weren't very long in those days, were they? You know, what did you get, 40 minutes or something if you counted both sides, something like that. I can't even remember anymore. But yeah, it wasn't sort of long enough to write a massive novel, so it always ended up being just a short piece. But it had I quite enjoyed that structure to it, not being a writer and knowing how to write properly in any other way. But yeah, I've always quite liked that. I suppose it's like you know, you kind of go venturing wrong way round and the other way around, venturing down memory lane, because as you get older, that you know, you start to realise how that's better, how much stuff you've got up in your head that you've stored over the years, weird things, and most of it you haven't ever, most of us I suppose haven't ever revisited, so it's kind of stashed away, things you did. Right, that's my Japanese fret saw. So these are a bit grubby, so I'll probably give them a clean, but there is no reason indeed, apart from that reason. This was drilled for, I suppose, for a Stratocaster. Well, no, well, it looks like it's been drilled for obviously bigger gauge things, but actually there's no reason, looking at that, that's close enough to put in with a bit of a little bit of what's that stuff, resin maybe, just to hold it in place. I could dig around, I might have some spare ones that are a different size to this, but anyway, I think these are no-name tuners, but actually they are smooth as anything, and I love split post tuners, so they're going to go on here. Obviously we'd need a guiding ferrule because these are so different in size. Yeah, so, but that's not mad. This was the Marlin neck, and it's absolutely thin as anything now. I mean, you could put this on a guitar and it would play. It used to be, first of all, it was totally twisted, and it was also bent like a banana, and I literally shaved, sanded and shaved out the bend and untwisted, clamped and untwisted the twist. So amazingly, by the time I ended it, there was almost no fingerboard left on it. So, and that doesn't matter because now what you've got is a ridiculously thin neck. So I've no idea how that would actually play, but I'm not going to put it on anything serious because I don't want to put a sort of rescued old thing onto a guitar that I care about. But at some point along the line, I might try it out. Okay. So for upcycling this, as you can see, I've widened the slots without doing any damage to the lacquer around them. So basically that combination of hand clearing the hand lacquered neck and clearing the slots as you go along is an absolute ball breaker, as they say. But you can see that for a sort of, I wasn't being too careful, but for a hand finished guitar neck that was going in the bin, reshaped, re-fretted, re-lacquered, recoloured effectively, that's actually starting to look like something I want to play, and will do. And it's actually got quite a bit of quilting going on here at this part of the neck, so it's actually a nice thing rather than something that's just shrieks of its horrible origins. So in terms of stages now, I'm going to press the frets in. Like I said, I think it's worth the pros and cons. The cons of using glue is that there will be some spillage and I have to clean that up quickly, and it will affect the uniformity of this finish. If I can press all these in and they stay in and stay down flat to the perfect level, then I'd love to be able to do that, because then it would look just like this with beautiful gold frets, with nothing, kind of no splurge or anything. There's no reason why not to try it. And if I press a few in and I look down here and I see that it just looks terrible because they're not going in far enough, or that the glue is necessary to hold the frets down, then that's what I'll do. I'll pull them and refret them, and I have got spares, you know, so I can go for that. But that's the next stage. Refret these, possibly without glue for a test. But what we'll end up with is the frets will go in with an overhang. So I will need to make some sort of, who's out there? I'll need to make some something up to fill these little things. Now I can't remember what I did last time. I'm still on the lookout for a good filler. That I tried it once with Cascamite, which made a sort of nice-ish kind of similar mapley colour, but then my Cascamite. Who's this? Psst, psst. Who are you? Oh, you're Fat Face. This is the stray. Hello. You don't know my shed, do you? I know, you're telling me to get on with the Harley Benton. I know, I'm sorry. He's a bit of a stray guy. Yeah, we've kind of lost one of our own and gained a stray. But anyway, so yeah, I still haven't. I should really go and ask that question online somewhere. I haven't found a foolproof way. You could do it with super glue, then you have to kind of sand it back, and then you have to coat it with lacquer. I mean, then you know, I may have to end up buffing it on the edges, which is doable. But blending in some fresh lacquer onto this is always a little bit harder than it looks. Or if we just leave it. But anyway, we live and learn, so let's see what we do. Okay, that's it for now. Next stage, refretting, beveling the frets off, and filling the little gaps. Well, I jumped ahead. I'd filled some end bits in here with a mixture of stuff, and while it was in there I thought, instead of just leaving it to set and then getting in the way of the tangs, I thought, why don't I just get these frets in now, since I was going to do them without glue anyway. And lo and behold, it was very quick. So I'm not going to bother trimming them, but there you go. Ooh, I didn't sort of intend to do that, but that's pretty. Looks pretty good actually. I mean, interestingly, the frets look like they're all nice and I don't know what the word is. Thingied, ready, done, in place. And occasionally, this, you know, sometimes you see a little bit of gap, but actually it's only a gap on. It's highlighting a slight inconsistency on the fretboard, basically, which isn't surprising considering this is a Rescue Ranger thingy. So that's that done, and I think we'll call it quits there. That's how you upcycle an old neck, and then after that you basically trim the frets. Once you've trimmed the frets, you level them if you need to once you put them on the neck, on the guitar, which I won't be doing until that encore body comes in later on this week. But there we have it. Whoa, gold things. I can take a picture of those because they look so good. What I did was I had mixed in a tiny bit of amber lacquer, a nitro lacquer with what's the stuff? Resin, and I didn't really know straight off how they would mix together. They seemed to hold up fairly well together, so that's fine. Just going to move that out of the way because it's mucky. Get a picture of the gold frets shining on here. Oh yeah. The lighting. Okay, that's it for necks. Thank you for watching that. Hope you found it useful. I'm going to go and get on with this now, finally. No more procrastinating.